Hey there and welcome back to Remnant 2. Today we're going to be looking at one of the new amulets that came with the Lost Kingdom DLC, and it is the Fragrant Thorn. This thing is focused around status effect damage, so it's going to be a status effect build, but you know, there's some flexibility in how you do it, but it's also a little stringent on really making this amulet work. Now we're going to be doing this on Apocalypse, so you get to see how the whole build is doing there. In general, generally speaking, status builds are pretty strong. Is it any better than some of your other choices? Maybe not, but it is a different choice and it's a different way of doing it. And it also has some nice support capability to help enhance what your team is doing. So what does it do? Increase status effect damage by 20%, and when you inflict 4 or more unique status effects on the target, it will apply exposed for 15 seconds. And that's going to increase the damage the targets take by 15%. So this thing is fairly comparable to something like the energized neck coil, because the neck coil increases status effect damage by 20%, and then when you apply a damaging status effect, it's an explosion. So this gets a lot of damage up front, which is very solid. So in that way, I would say energized neck coil is probably your winner because it's just a solid choice, right? And now you can only do it every 5 seconds. So, there is that part to it. However, the one thing about the neck coil is this exposed effect is helping all your teammates. So if you've got a lot of teammates doing a bunch of things too, this can do a lot of work for you, right? And if you got a little bit of a hybrid build, kind of like I do, I'm doing a bit more like some range damage with my whole setup. Being able to just increase that by 15% is pretty nice too. On the whole, I've enjoyed it. Now, the bad thing is you have to actually apply 4 different status effects to the target. You can't apply burning 4 different times. That doesn't count. It has to be 4 different ones, like burning, corrosion, overloaded, bleeding, slow. You have to have those effects going on in order to trigger the exposed effect. So on that part, it's kind of annoying. But with the right setup, it can be pretty easy to do. If you have a lot of different choices, if you have the ritualist, also can be pretty easy to do. And then honestly speaking, you don't need to do this on every single enemy. There's no reason to. 2 status effects to just gun down a guy, a random Fey guy, no problem. Really, it's just going to help you out when you're fighting your elites, when you're fighting your bosses, right? So let's look at what I'm doing to trigger it. And the first choice I'm using is the Merciless. This is my long gun. After shooting for a short amount of time, it's going to inflict bleeding, which really is pretty quick. It's been updated much faster than it used to be. So we get bleeding from that. And then we put in Searing Wounds so that when we hit weak spots or critical hits, it's going to also apply burning. So now we've got 2 status effects there. And then our melee weapon is a Krellax, which will apply Overloaded when we do the charge attack. It's a throw. And we put Tainted Blade in there so that it also applies corrosion. So what I will do is, there's an enemy, an elite or something, I'm going to throw it, take a couple shots, boom, there's the bleeding and probably the burning too if I've hit them in a good spot. And just like that, they have 4 damaging status effects and exposed, which is increasing all the damage that they're taking by 15%. Very solid. I should also say that we have the handler on right now. The bleeding from the handler does not count as one of your unique status effects. So you can't rely on the dog to apply bleeding and then go from there. So keep that in mind. Another option is just a slight variation on that would be to go with the Sparkfire shotgun and then put in Twisting Wounds. It's just the inverse of our Merciless setup, where it's the bleeding in the gun and burning on a mutator. Sparkfire is burning on the gun and bleeding on the mutator. Now you might be wondering, why am I not talking about Fetid Wounds? I mean, that's absolutely an option. It's totally a choice you could do in order to apply corrosion. And what you could do there is have something like your Sparkfire shotgun, which applies burning, Fetid Wounds as your mutator, which applies corrosion, and then throw in Overloaded, right, with the wherever it's at. Yeah, put in the overflow so that then you activate your mod, because when do you need this effect going on? Your elites and your bosses, and that's when you're going to be really using your mods. So then you've got 3 status effects there. Another alternative would be to use Scrap Shot, because Scrap Shot now is applying slow and bleeding, so that's 2 status effects. So you could have burning from the Sparkfire, you could have corrosion from your mutator, and then slow and bleeding from Scrap Shot. And that's your 4 status effects on your enemy, and then you are now cooking with the exposed effect. And after that, you could then rely on whatever you've got for your melee weapon and handgun to kind of cover down on some of your other status effects, right? The Krellax is doing that lightning, and you put the Tainted Blade in there for corrosion. Maybe you have the Huntress Spear. You could put the Huntress Spear, which is doing corrosion. Throw in the Misfortune Mutator. This is going to apply slow at level 10, so there's 2 effects right there, corrosion and slow. Then you go back to your spark fire where you're doing fire, and maybe you do some overloaded or something, so you got things there. And after that, you could even rely on your rings, so you could ignore some of these other things, go with something like the Blood Jewel, so that my spear or axe or whatever we're using is now doing 3 effects. So for example, let's say we have on the Smolder. We get on Smolder, we throw in the Tainted Blade, so now it's doing burning and corrosion. Throw in the Blood Jewel, and now it's doing bleeding. It's got 3 status effects right there. All we have to do is apply overloaded from there. Maybe we use the, the lightning gun, the Enigma, to do the overloaded effect. You could then also rely on some other rings to do the overloaded, like the feedback loop, where you do an electric shock on a perfect dodge and have that be the way that you do a status effect on enemies too. There's a lot of options depending on what you want to do. I personally find this kind of setup the easiest because it's 2 from this one, 2 from this one. I'm not super reliant on mods. I'm not super reliant on like heavy switches or anything like that. To me, it's simple and clean, makes it really easy. Now let's talk about the Ritualist. The Ritualist has a skill, Miasma. You cast a skill, it applies all the status effects that you need to get that exposed effect on the enemies. So you just do that, it really charges in 42 seconds, and that's without any like points into expertise or anything in our relic. So it recharges pretty quick, fast enough for your in between your elite fights, not enough to keep sustained exposed on like a boss, right? Because this is going to take 42 seconds to come back. It only lasts for 15 seconds. So you basically would need to be doing something like this every 15 seconds in order to keep the exposed effect on there. And then after that, I mean, that's pretty much it. That's how you could get this like amulet working for you. And like I said, it's going to increase all the damage that the enemy's taking. So in a team setting, this is going to do a lot more. It's going to shine a lot better. We're playing by yourself, and I mean, it's been fine. And I'll show you some gameplay with it. As far as my actual loadout goes, I'm running Handler as my primary because that's just what I felt like doing. I've been kind of sloppy in a way, and having the dog be able to pick me up has been kind of nice. And in addition, the Handler is increasing our ranged melee skill damage, increasing our ranged melee skill and crit chance and stuff. So I've got kind of a hybrid between increase my status effect damage, thanks to the Fragrant Thorn, and then with the Exposed increasing all the damage they're taking, I've got a lot of some like ranged and crit bonuses going, so that overall my gun is doing some pretty reasonable damage as well. I did still take the Ritualist because it's just really nice to have Miasma as a like kind of click, my easy go-to, apply all the status effects, and if there's a lot of guys around me, being able to do a big AoE on those guys is super nice. Now you could easily put this as your primary and then use a Vial perk, or the Vial perk, in order to spread it around. Very strong, great for clearing out chaff. I didn't feel like doing it because that's always a thing. I totally do not need the Ritualist to make this work. Run the Medic, run the Alchemist, something, or even the Invoker. You know, any of these other things that are doing flat damage increases, elemental damage increases, use what you got, right? Now for the rings that I'm running here, I've got this new one I got the other day, the Black Spindle. So whenever we apply a negative status effect, it gets us 2% of our max HP every second for 3 seconds. And then when we apply it or do whatever, refresh it, it's going to keep increasing the duration by 1.5 seconds up to 15 seconds. So we can easily get up to 15 seconds of constantly getting health regen. I really like it. My next ring is a probability cord, increasing my crit damage by 20%. And I'll explain a little bit more on that. Just know that we're getting a little bit bigger on our critical chance, so I wanted to increase some of that damage. I then also have the Ahanai Crystal. This got a bit of a nerf here as the latest update, but it is still a good choice for us because they're going to have, 4 different unique status effects on them. So we're going to get a 12% damage increase because they're going to have a bunch of status effects on them. Now, how does it apply with something like the Dog's Bleed and stuff too? Not really sure. I don't think it counts because if the applying exposes any like metric to show, me having a stack of bleed from me and a stack of bleed from the dog doesn't count as 2 unique status effects because they're both just bleed, even though they're from unique sources. And then the last one is another DLC ring. This one is a Token of Favor, increases all our damage by 5%, cool. And then we gain a 10% critical chance against exposed targets, which is why I went into the probability chord. So this is going to help us out a lot on those elites, help us out a lot on those bosses. Now we go to our relic. Ripened Heart is just my choice for right now. Increased health, because we're on Apocalypse, is my go-to choice. Increased range crit chance, because we're kind of doing a bit of a crit chance thing. And then I did just a flat range damage increase as well. That was just, again, just kind of my choice right now. Because I'm doing a bit of a crit chance type of thing, it would make sense for me to run Fetid Wounds, because Fetid Wounds is increasing that crit chance based on how many unique negative status effect is on the enemy. However, with my lineup of my status effects here, the burning one is just working better for me, so that's why I took it, but it does just increase our damage as well since we're applying it to burning enemies. Armor wise, I've got the Elder Headdress on with the Red Widow armor. I was just kind of digging it. No particular reason. Run a different armor set, whatever is going to maximize your damage reduction to weight ratio, right? Trait-wise, since we are running the Handler, I went ahead and put points into Bloodbond and Rugged just to make the dog more durable and make him take some damage for us. Big reason I took Rugged is because we have the Attack Dog skill, which is just making him take or deal more damage, and we can increase our own damage as well. If you were doing more of the Guard Dog, I might not need Rugged because that gives him more durability as well. So you could do that option and take those 10 points, putting in something else. Now, after that, the rest of it is pretty standard for my Apocalypse stuff. You know, maxed out Triage, Regrowth. I did do max Swiftness because I felt like going fast. We've already got a movement speed bonus from being the Handler, so I really wanted to go just a bit faster. I want to lean into that speed a little bit more. And then going in with that, I've got Untouchable maxed out so that we've got really good evade windows. And then maxed out Vigor. We already talked about Bloodbond and Vigor, or Rugged. I put some of my leftover points into Fitness. It's not maxed out, but that evade distance is nice because it can help get us out of sticky situations and certain combo attacks from enemies. And then a couple points into Recovery, putting at 5, and Endurance as well. It's at 4. I would actually like that to be 5 too, but honestly, it's not making too much of a difference. That's just my stamina quality of life choice. Let's go ahead and we're going to run through the Gilded Chambers. I was actually going to go through a different dungeon, Tiller's Rest or something, and then I realized I hadn't actually cleared this one. So we're going to start going through here. And this is where I just tested, like if you look on the map, I died up there. I drank the potion to go back to the checkpoint because I tested whether slow counts as a negative status effect for the purpose of applying exposed, and it does. So we're going to run it through here. I am pretty sure the Red Prince can have burning applied to him. It's just not going to be very strong. I'm pretty sure that's what I remember. So we should be pretty solid here. Let's go ahead and just activate our dog skill. Send him in first because that's, you know, I would say the correct way to do it, right? Send the dog in first. Let him draw some aggro. Now, there's a lot of dudes here, and this is one of those situations where you would maybe get a bunch of them going, hit that, and let it apply to all of them. And just like that, they're just going to whittle down. That's the strengths of, you know, Miasma and the Ritualist. So really easy stuff right there. Obviously, all of those things are doing more damage because we've got increased status effect damage. And then we just kind of keep going. And like I said, you know, for all these like little guys, there's really no reason for us to try and juggle having 4 status effects on them. Because like, look at that. He's already going down. We didn't even apply 2 to him. The dog finishes him off as well. It's just too much work to really try and do all of it all at once. This guy's a little bit burlier, so we can get the 4 going on there. But even then, you can see it's not a big deal for us. But if we can get an elite, we'll show that off a little bit. On the whole, I do really enjoy status builds. They're just kind of fun. Just having damage over time effects and watching them chip down on the enemy is fun. They are pretty strong, especially with the Ritualist. You can do some very strong combos. Oh, there's an aberrant guy in here. All right, let's use our relic now. That way, our dog is buffed up. There he is. Let's get this kind of cooking on him. Oh, hello. I would like to hit the big guy, though, please. There we go. So now he's going to start taking some increased damage. We can also rely on our mod. That dude is hurting us. There's some of that extra regen. Dodge that. Didn't work. Move away. Now, the cool thing is, our flamethrower, I didn't talk about what's going on in here. It's got Maelstrom in there. That is increasing this weapon's damage for each unique status effect on the enemy. So because we're applying like 4 different ones, that is a, well, elemental ones. So because we have those 3 unique elemental status effects on the enemy, that's a 30% damage increase to our flamethrower. So it ends up turning into quite a lot. How am I not dodging that? So you can really burn down some enemies with this, with the Hellfire. It's pretty solid. I do enjoy it quite a bit. And with the Maelstrom effect, you can charge up the explosive effect a bit more, which is nice. Even though we're not super reliant on the mod. You could also run Twisting Wounds on there. I've done that before, and it was pretty okay. I didn't mind it so much. It all kind of depends on your flavor. You could even put the Fetid Wounds on there if you want to get some, you know, again, more status effect stuff going on. Another option for like some rings you could try and use. One is, again, something I'm trying to get, and that's the, it's like the Shade Ring. So it just increases your status effect damage. I would really like that one. That's what I've been trying to get for pretty much since the DLC came out, and I just can't seem to get it. Another one, you know, is a Red Ring of Death, because we're applying status effects. Bad thing is, you know, when you start having a lot of different status effects going on, it's not always the best, because it ends up duplicating really weak split like damage. So like our bleed is doing 55 per second. You know, if we split that one, it could end up doing 2 stacks of 50, which is pretty solid, right? Or it could split our fire damage from Searing Wounds, which is like 20 damage. So it's not nearly as good, right? So in general, I find the Red Ring, I mean, it's still good even with a bunch of stuff going on. But generally speaking, I find it does better when you have a singular high-powered effect going on. And that's the one that you duplicate. The Burden of the Destroyer, always a great choice, because you can just, you know, increase all of your damage. I'm kind of relying on the, you know, the firearm stuff, so I don't really want that going on, because I would like to, you know, be able to hit things from a fair distance away. And see, like I said, playing kind of sloppy. I was just standing there, I thought I could just keep shooting the elite. Status effects brought him down though, hooray for him. And then we just do that and we run away. And we just run away. We need to heal though, because, you know, we've got a lot of gray health. And down they go, just like that. I tried running Band of the Fanatic. The bad thing with that one is, you know, you don't have very long to run, you know, to have your status effects on your target to trigger the exposed. So I don't find that one to be a solid choice here. Yeah, I just didn't like it. Now, as we go in to fight the Red Prince here, we're going to swap out of the Hellfire. The reason is, it's not going to be as effective, right? Even if he's not immune to the fire damage or burning, he's totally going to be resistant. So we're going to go to the Nebula. Nano Swarm is just fantastic. It's just going to be applying more corrosion stacks, more passive damage over time effects, right? And the way I'm going to run it is with feedback. I like feedback on the Nebula because it can, you know, can get the mod like recharged up pretty quickly, and then you can just keep spitting it back out there. But let's see how old boy does against us. Here we go. Let's go ahead and get our Dog's Effect going, and I'm actually just gonna hit him with this like right off the bat. Activate our Nano Swarm, and then we just start unloading. Yeah, I should have dodged that. Yeah, look at how his health is chunking down. Pretty solid. He's Skullcracker and Drain. No elemental resist, which is unfortunate for him. There we go. Let's hit him with one of these. One of the things I'm not very good at with the Merciless is actually using the mod effect. I don't need to hit them because they're about to go away. Yeah, I'm not super great. But look how quick it is. I don't know how many seconds that was. He's already down nearly 50% of his health. And the build can do some damage. It can do some work. Now, I've chosen to set it up where I'm not like super durable. Oopsies. So, like, depending on how you want to do it, you may want to instead get a little bit more durability, whether it's through your armor, taking the fortified trait, etc., etc. Whatever is going to, like, work for you. And look how he just keeps chipping down. I'm too slow on these dodges. I'm not, like... It's what happens when you get off work. You go ahead and crack open a nice, tasty post-work adult beverage, and then you just start running at the game. You're gonna be a little off, right? Also, it's freaking hot in this room, dude. Whoop. We're gonna go ahead and just use this because I'm too lazy. Whoop. Way too early on that dodge. Whoop. Oop. And we can also, dog skill is already off cooldown, so we can get that going. I'm being super lazy on my heal because look how quickly we can regenerate thanks to regrowth, triage, and the combination with that new ring, the black spindle. So like we've got a lot of health coming back to us. And then, I mean, I didn't even reuse Nebula. So I haven't been using full power because I've been really lazy. It's solid. You know, it's a status effect build. They do well. But on the whole, the Fragrant Thorn has done well. It just makes all our statuses do more and then makes the enemy just take more damage. And like I said, it's just going to do even better in a team setting where you have multiple sources of damage on the enemy. And so you can make all the damage that your team is doing way better. Now, I haven't gotten everything out of the DLC, and I have a feeling there's probably an even better gun ring setup I could do with this thing, but I'm really taking my time and doing a lot of it like very organically in like my exploration. So if you have it, man, like I would absolutely use that other thing. I really feel like there is something even better you could do to use with this amulet. Even more exposed effects going on there that you could pull off and keep applying things to the enemy. But that's pretty much it, man. That's the setup. That's the Fragrant Thorn. Very fun. I really enjoy it. Give it a try for yourself. If you like status builds, here's a way to do it that's different, that's pretty solid, but not like mind-blowingly like OP or anything like that. Appreciate you guys watching it. Always do. And yeah, till the next one. Take care.